Hello there, it's Zeeebo and welcome back to this AFK Journey video. So with the whole slew of contents dropping in AFK Journey with version 1.23 dropping, we have the final artifact piece to be unlocked from the Carmine Whisper clan quest, which is the Frontline spell over here. So for those of you guys who have been following me since the pre-season, right before Waves of Intrigue got released, this artifact right here is actually really strong in the pre-season testing, at least in the early access of Waves of Intrigue, where we were able to get like most of our units to Supreme Plus and then test the artifacts against the different Dream Realm bosses. So this artifact is one of those artifacts that benefits the melee teams in general the most, which I've talked about multiple times. And in this video, we managed to unlock this artifact, and I'm going to do some test run to see whether or not this artifact is good moving towards the late game. Okay, so I'll increase this to plus 25. I think I should have enough materials. Okay, cause my stuff is already pretty much maxed out from the Legends Trial side. 825 done. Okay, so for those of you guys who are not familiar, Frontline spell provides the physical and magical defense boost upwards to 50%. Haste, massive haste, by the way, 11.2, even higher than our tight core spell, which is 9.8, and on top of that we have 11.2 life drain as well. So pretty massive haste and life drain buff. And on top of that, if you take a look at the ability over here, whenever an allied hero first enters the enemy side of the battlefield, grants the hero a permanent shield equals to 60% of the team's attack. And when 3 different allied heroes have entered the enemy side of the battlefield, place a banner of inspiration, and the banner increases the damage of all allies by 80% while reducing damage taken by 20% while they're on the enemy side. So basically you want to rush to the enemy side. So how this frontline spell works is the battlefield will be cut into half, right? So one half is yours and the other half is the enemy. So as long as you cross that middle line where it's the enemy side, you basically cross this enemy side of the battlefield criteria for this artifact to take effect. So increasing in level, right, increases the damage buff to 26%, increases the life drain, and doesn't increase the damage reduction. Okay, so this artifact over here increases survivability, increases damage, as well as have a really high value in terms of the stat side of things. So without further ado, let's try it out in the AFK stage pushing side to see whether or not this artifact works. Specifically, I'll say mostly in the Wilders faction, because I think a lot of Wilders unit, they like to run forward. So what I'm going to do is this, right? We are going to, we're going to use Fresto, because Fresto is like one additional body that runs at the enemy. Then we're going to use OD, we're going to use Mikola for sure. I think I'll use Smokey because I want to send Smokey in, right? So we want to spend Smokey in. Mikola will run in herself, and then we just put in a Coco for the full Mauler side. So we'll see whether or not this works. So let's go. Okay, so we go at one time, so you guys can see the middle of the battlefield, there's a line drawn. So because we have 3 units in the battlefield of the enemy side, we have OD, Smokey, and Mikola. We get the flag plant there. So when the flag is planted, you can see a whole bunch of buffs on the unit within the other side. So Coco over here has so little buffs, but if you take a look at OD, if you take a look at Smokey over here, a whole bunch of buff. So the buffs include the damage reduction, which was mentioned earlier, the damage buff, and obviously the buffs from all the other units in the team itself. So yeah, the main one will be the damage reduction because it's quite big, 18%, and the damage boost is 26%, pretty massive. So we're gonna continue pushing, right? Let's run at 2 times and see whether or not we can clear this. So my Smokey is being controlled here, unfortunately. Maybe what I could have done is probably sending Coco instead and let Smokey channel the ultimate behind Fresto. I think this is what I'll do. Yeah, so you will need to have at least 3 units on the enemy side. So the best case scenario would be to just send in melee units and just run towards the enemy side. But I think in the AFK stage pushing side, running towards the enemy side is pretty suicidal in most cases because we will be understated, right? So in this case, I'll say factional talent stage wise, the 2 factions which have the ability to run to the enemy side, one would be the Tasi team and the other one would be the Mauler team right here, because Mauler just sends the unit into the enemy side, so they will be able to benefit from the buff greatly. So right here, Smokey will be able to melt the front line. And on top of that, right, I think 11.2 points of stats on haste and lifesteal is pretty big. because not only increases your survivability, but the haste allows you to increase your damage output as well. So combine that with the damage buff as well as the life drain, you have an artifact that finds a good balance both defensively and offensively, but just more specific to a specific team type. So we're done with this one. Let's see whether or not there's a way for me to actually clear this. Okay, so we'll feature Lily May. We will use Iron Armors and okay, I guess I'm gonna give up on this one. We'll come back later. Okay, so we're not gonna drag the video out for too long, and we're gonna go into the Dream Realm side. So for today's run itself, I think tomorrow is Olsen. So I think Olsen is probably gonna be a boss where if the frontline spell is available on global side, I do have a few team ideas for Olsen. For Snow Stomper right here, right? The issue now with Snow Stomper is that this is the best team right here. So the best damage range is about 55 build to about 60 plus build with this team. And we do have a way to send in a Smokey to activate the flag buff. So I tell you what, we will do one run with frontline spell and see how it works out. And then we analyze the things to change. Okay, so very easy to proc the buff. But one thing is, I think for range characters itself, right? I don't know whether or not they actually get the buff from the Tau itself. I think they do, right? There's a haste buff. There's a damage. Okay, there's a damage buff on Freya's. Okay, I think Lily May might not. Yeah, Lily May. I don't think Lily May has that buff because she's not in the enemy side of the battlefield. So I think if let's say there's a way to send Lily May in, then that could actually be a game changer, because like she is the carry, right? So increasing her damage is gonna increase the overall damage output. Okay, so obviously melee teams or unit that is able to go into the enemy's line will be something that's better. But yeah, the damage is really far off. Pretty unfortunate. We're gonna do some damage comparison. So 32 build here. Now let's take a look at like our other records. So this is like my usual records right here. So average about 55 to 63. It's a 52 build right here. So there is like some highs and lows. But let's just do a simple comparison, right? So right here, Smokey did a lot more damage with the Enlightening. Okay, partially because, right, when you use Enlightening on Smokey is actually immune. So during that period of immunity, Smokey can actually cast the ultimate to do more damage. So if you take a look at the numbers itself, right, I think Lily May does pretty much the same damage, but Smokey right here does way more. So 18 build here. So right here, if we take a look at this record, this is like 3 build, so he probably didn't do much, but actually Lily May did a lot more damage. 2 build more. If let's say we can actually find a way to make Smokey work, then maybe this is still possible. Or maybe if I have Shakir, but my Shakir is not really strong, so I'm probably not gonna beat my damage here. Hello, that is Zeeebo one day after the recording, and in this video we're gonna compare the damage difference between our dear Resonating spell as well as the Frontline spell. So this is the best recommended positioning. So I tried it. I'm currently top 18 in my server based on the damage, which I'll probably fall off a little bit. But with regards to this team over here, I did a damage run just now. And Resonating spell actually did a little bit less compared to Frontline, but I think it's also because of the formation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Freya's here and I'm going to put Lily May here, so that Lily May will be the Resonator to get the buff, and then we'll compare the damage, because that way we will be able to compare the max damage that we can do. So without further ado, let's start this. Although changing out this positioning might affect the final damage outcome, because there's a rationale behind putting both Freya's on the right side. That is to optimize Lily May's aura buffing. So this way, I think my Lily May is a lot better because she gets the Resonator buff for the attack buff as well as the energy to spam her skill. But my overall positioning might be a little bit more wonky. So we shall see the damage numbers and then we do a comparison with the Frontline spell. The previous positioning I feel is a lot more optimal in terms of min-maxing for this boss. At least even my main account, I think the previous one was a little bit better. So later on, when we do the Frontline spell comparison, we will actually try to use that position. Although Frontline spell has a lot of positioning caveats to min-max on the damage, because your units need to be across the middle line in order to get a flag buff. So those are the different things to consider with regards to the Frontline spell artifact. Okay. So right here, okay, we're just gonna skip the battle because we just see the final damage. Okay, so for this one, we got... Okay, I think maybe Feresto Illusion is still better for this. Okay, we're just gonna do another run, right? This time around with the original positioning. So Lily May here, Feresto here, and then we're gonna go. Okay, so let's keep the battle and see how much we get here. So right here, we get 44 build. So pretty similar across all the different runs. So the Illusion Feresto did a little bit, right? Lily May did a little bit more, and then overall we do this amount of damage. Now we move on to the Frontline spell. So I'll show you guys my records for today, and you guys can see for yourself. So these are the records for Olsen. Yes, let's read it down to Olsen right here. So if we go through Olsen right here, this is post endless, so this is me with a much stronger Feresto. So around the 44 build mark with this team with resonating, and then for Frontline spell we did a little bit more, right? So we're gonna use this team, basically the same setup, but instead we are using the Frontline spell. So I'm actually thinking to shift Feresto a little bit forward, because for the Frontline spell itself, you don't actually care too much about the positioning of these Feresto, because Resonating will want to buff these Feresto, but Frontline will just buff everyone. So I think we will try to shift this forward so that our whole unit formation will be more frontline, because Feresto will be moving towards the boss faster. Okay, so let's try to go with this one. Okay, 3 times, so the units walks in front. We proc the flag buff. Elsa's on the other side. Okay, really nice. So she's getting the buff and the lifesteal. Great. I think main Feresto also has the lifesteal and the damage buff. Mikola as well, because they are within the front line. Yeah, so that's the reason why I shifted Feresto in front, because that way this boss actually can move forward, right? So the boss will slowly inch forward, and if you don't push yourself towards the enemy side of the battlefield, you might be forced out of the enemy side. So this way I think it's a lot better. I think most of my units are getting the buff. Okay, another thing to consider is also the additional haste and the life drain that the artifact provides. So the life drain increases your survival, and the haste actually gives you more damage as well. Okay, pretty nice stuff. Okay, but Lily May is not getting the buff from the flag, cause Lily May is on our side of the battlefield. Elsa shifted back to our side. Our Feresto is getting the buff. Okay, so the boss is pushing us back, but our Feresto is moving forward. So you guys can see, right, we did a little bit more. And I think with optimization in terms of the builds itself, right, I could see Frontline spell going equal with resonating and even better against all the bosses as well. So yeah, it's a little bit better here. I'm not sure whether or not it's because of my Feresto's tier. Like I mentioned earlier, I think if my Feresto was a little bit stronger, maybe like for example Mythic Plus or even Supreme Plus, then raising spell might actually be better, because the buff will give my Feresto more damage. But if we were to compare to Frontline spell, it doesn't lose out by too much. So there is a possibility that Frontline spell could be one of the upcoming meta artifacts that you guys might want to take a look out for, because this is something that was really good in the pre-season testing. And I think based on this season's mechanics, specifically with the Mauler factional talent, with units like Reina, with units that are melee and really powerful by nature, it makes it such that Frontline spell is definitely something worth looking into, right, to build up your team and build up your strategies around. So that's pretty much it, just the initial first look for this artifact. I'll wait for this artifact to drop on a global server before doing even more in-depth testing with my more developed account, and then giving like my final verdict for this artifact, whether or not he has fallen off, whether or not it has been overtaken due to the state of the game, and whether or not he has come too late. Okay, so thank you very much for tuning in. Do remember to like and subscribe to see more. See you guys again in my next video. Bye guys.